Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a young woman, only 20 years old, sitting alone inside a cold stone tower. The room is dark. The door is locked. Outside, armed soldiers stand guard, and the river moves silently beneath the castle walls. She has no army, no money, and no powerful friends to save her. Even her own sister, the Queen of England, does not trust her. She does not know if tomorrow will bring freedom or death. But this frightened girl will not disappear. One day, she will rise from that prison and become one of the greatest queens in history. How does a girl that the world has rejected become the woman that the world cannot forget? Today we will walk together through the life of Queen Elizabeth I. We will discover how she survived danger, imprisonment, and doubt. We will feel the courage it took to stand before an army and speak without fear. And we will understand what it truly means to choose a kingdom over everything else. So make yourself comfortable and let the story begin. Before Elizabeth's story can truly begin, we must understand the world she was born into. England in the 1500s was a world ruled by men. Kings made the laws. Kings led the armies. Kings decided the future of the nation. Most people believed women should stay quiet, marry well, and give birth to sons. Even royal women were expected to support powerful men, not become powerful themselves. A woman ruling alone seemed almost impossible to many people. They thought a queen needed a husband to guide her, protect her, and make the real decisions. Remember this. It makes Elizabeth's life even more remarkable. She was not only fighting for a crown, she was fighting against the beliefs of an entire age. And yet somehow she would change those beliefs forever. In 1533, in a royal palace at Greenwich near London, a baby girl was born. Her father was King Henry VIII, one of the most famous kings in English history. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, the king's second wife. But this birth did not bring the joy the court expected. Henry wanted a son, a boy who could become king after him and carry his family's name into the future. When he saw that the child was a girl, he felt deeply disappointed. That baby was Elizabeth. Her life began inside a palace, but also under the shadow of rejection and danger. She had not yet opened her eyes, and already the world had decided she was not enough. When Elizabeth was only 2 years old, her life changed forever. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, was arrested. She was accused of terrible crimes. Many people today believe those accusations were false. But in that dangerous world, truth did not always save a person. Anne was taken to trial. She was found guilty, and she was executed. Her head was cut off with a sword inside the Tower of London. Elizabeth was too young to understand what had happened. She would never remember her mother's face. After Anne's death, King Henry declared Elizabeth illegitimate, a word that meant she was no longer officially accepted as his true daughter. In one cruel moment, Elizabeth lost her mother, her title, and her place in the line of kings and queens. She was just 2 years old, but the story did not end there. Elizabeth grew up far from the royal court. She lived in quiet country houses where few people paid attention to her. But even in that lonely life, her mind became powerful. She had excellent teachers, and she learned quickly. She studied Latin, Greek, French, Italian, and some Spanish. She loved books, music, and deep thinking. By the time she was a young woman, she could speak 5 languages with confidence. But Elizabeth learned something even more important than languages. She learned how to survive. In a dangerous royal family, one wrong word could destroy a life. So she became careful, patient, and observant. She watched everything. She said only what was necessary. She trusted very few people. These quiet years helped prepare her for the crown, even though she did not yet know the crown was coming. England was a dangerous place when Elizabeth was young. The country was deeply divided between Catholics and Protestants, 2 groups of Christians who disagreed about religion, church authority, and how people should pray. Elizabeth's older half-sister, Mary, became queen in 1553. Mary was Catholic. She believed Protestants were enemies of God, and many people were punished, imprisoned, or killed for their beliefs. People later called her Bloody Mary because of the violence of her rule. Elizabeth was Protestant, so she had to be extremely careful. One wrong word, one trusted friend who turned against her, one letter that carried the wrong name, any of these could mean the end of her life. So, my friend, as you listen to this story, remember, sometimes survival is not about being the loudest person in the room. Sometimes it is about staying calm, watching carefully, and waiting for the right moment. In 1554, Queen Mary no longer trusted Elizabeth. She believed her younger sister might be secretly planning against her. So Mary ordered soldiers to take Elizabeth to the Tower of London, one of the most feared prisons in England. Many people who entered that place never came out alive. Elizabeth knew her own mother had died there years before. Imagine the fear in her heart as she passed through those cold gates. She was only 20 years old, surrounded by stone walls, guards, and silence. She did not know if she would ever be free again. If you enjoy slow English stories like this, consider subscribing. New stories arrive every week. She waited. She survived. And history had not finished with her. Then, life changed in a single day. In November 1558, Queen Mary died. She had no children. According to the laws of England, the crown passed to the next person in line, Elizabeth. She was only 25 years old. The girl who had been called illegitimate. The girl who had lost her mother. The girl who had once walked into the Tower of London in fear. She was now Queen of England. According to the old story, Elizabeth received the news at Hatfield House, standing beneath an oak tree, when the men knelt before her and told her she was queen. She looked up and spoke words of faith and wonder. Her prison story had become a crown story. On January the 15th, 1559, Elizabeth entered London for her coronation. Coronation means the ceremony when a monarch officially becomes king or queen. The streets were filled with people waiting to see their new queen. They cheered, smiled, and threw flowers as she passed by. In every corner of the city, Elizabeth did not hide behind palace walls. She looked at her people. She smiled. She waved to them. She stopped to listen to children who read poems in her honor. She wanted England to see that she was not a distant ruler, but a queen who belonged to them. That day, the lonely girl from the Tower became the hope of a nation. But wearing the crown did not mean Elizabeth's troubles were over. England was still weak, poor, and deeply divided. One wrong decision could lead to rebellion. Many powerful men in Europe laughed at the idea of a woman ruling alone. Elizabeth understood the danger around her. She knew she had to be patient, clever, and calm. To survive as queen, she could not simply give orders. She had to prove, step by step, that she was strong enough to lead England herself. She listened carefully to her advisors. Her most trusted advisor was William Cecil, who served her faithfully for many years. Elizabeth knew that words could be as powerful as weapons, so she chose them with great care. When she was angry, she could still smile. When others wanted quick action, she knew how to wait. And that patience, that quiet, iron patience, would become her greatest weapon. From the very first days of her rule, everyone asked Elizabeth the same question. When would she marry her advisors? Parliament and foreign princes all believed England needed a king beside her. But Elizabeth refused to give her power away. She had seen how marriage could trap a queen. Her mother had married a king and lost her life. Her sister Mary had married the King of Spain and became weaker in the eyes of her people. Elizabeth wanted no master. She gave the world an answer no one expected. She told Parliament that she was already married, and her husband was the Kingdom of England. From that moment, many people began to call her the Virgin Queen. She used this image with great skill. Foreign kings still hoped they might one day persuade her, so they hesitated to attack England openly. Her refusal to marry was not weakness. It was strategy. The greatest danger of Elizabeth's reign came from across the sea. In 1588, Spain was the most powerful country in Europe. King Philip II of Spain had many reasons to be angry with Elizabeth. She was Protestant. She supported Spain's enemies in the Netherlands. English sailors had attacked Spanish treasure ships. So Philip decided to invade England. He prepared a huge fleet of warships called the Spanish Armada, 130 ships and tens of thousands of soldiers. Across England, fear began to spread. How could a small island kingdom survive against such a mighty empire? Elizabeth knew this moment would decide everything, and she did not hide. While her navy prepared at sea, Elizabeth rode out to meet her soldiers at Tilbury, a camp near the River Thames, east of London. She wore silver armor and showed no fear. And standing before the men ready to defend England, she spoke words that have been remembered for centuries. She admitted that she had the body of a weak woman, but she declared that she had the heart and spirit of a king and of a king of England. 2. Her soldiers cheered. In that moment, Elizabeth became more than a queen. She became the courage of England. The battle against the Spanish Armada had already begun before Elizabeth reached Tilbury. On the night of July the 28th, 1588, the English sent burning ships called fire ships directly into the Spanish fleet anchored off the coast of France. Flames moved across the dark water. The Spanish captains panicked. They cut their ropes and scattered, breaking the strong, curved formation, the tight shape that made the Armada so powerful. The next days brought fierce fighting in the English Channel. The English ships were smaller, faster, and easier to turn. They hit the Spanish again and again. Then nature joined the battle. Powerful storms off the coasts of Scotland and Ireland destroyed many Spanish ships as they tried to escape home. Against all expectations, Elizabeth's small island nation had defeated the greatest fleet in Europe. The news reached London slowly, and when it did, the city erupted in celebration. After the defeat of the Spanish Armada, England entered a new age of confidence. People began to believe that their small island could stand against the strongest powers in Europe. Ships sailed farther than ever before. Men like Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh became symbols of adventure and ambition. England was no longer seen as weak or unimportant. Under Elizabeth's rule, it began to grow into a world power. Many people later called this time the Golden Age of England. And at the very center of that golden age was the English language itself. The theater became one of the most exciting parts of English life. In London, people gathered to watch stories filled with love, danger, comedy, and tragedy. A young writer named William Shakespeare began creating plays that would live for centuries, works like Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. Elizabeth loved the arts. She helped create a world where writers could shine and stories could travel. The English language became more colorful, more powerful, and more expressive during her reign. Many words and phrases we still use today grew from this golden age of storytelling. In her final years, Elizabeth's crown became heavier than ever. She had ruled England for decades, but time slowly took away the people she loved and trusted. Her closest friends and advisors began to die, one after another. The great halls of her palace grew quieter. She had no husband, no children, and no family of her own to comfort her. Sometimes she sat alone and listened to music, remembering the bright days of her youth. Elizabeth had chosen her country over everything, and in old age, that choice brought a deep and painful loneliness. But she did not stop. Not until the very end. Elizabeth died on March the 24th, 1603. She was 69 years old. For 45 years, she had carried the crown of England through danger, war, fear, and change. Near the end of her life, she accepted that James, the King of Scotland, would follow her as ruler. When Elizabeth died, the Tudor family's long reign came to an end. But the England she left behind was stronger, prouder, and more confident than the England she had inherited as a young woman of 25. She had no husband and no children, but she gave her entire life to her country. And because of that, England never forgot her. Elizabeth's story teaches us something quiet and true. Patience is not weakness. Waiting, watching, and surviving, these are forms of courage that the world does not always recognize. Elizabeth was told she was not enough. She was told she could not rule alone. She was told that without a husband, without a son, without the approval of powerful men, she was nothing. And she proved them all wrong, not with anger, but with time. And that is something you already understand. Learning a language is its own kind of patience. There are days when English feels like a locked door, when the words do not come, when you wonder if you will ever feel comfortable, ever feel natural, ever feel at home in this language. But every time you listen, every sentence you follow, every new word that becomes clear, you are building something. Quietly, powerfully, step by step, just like Elizabeth. You are proving something. Not to the world, to yourself. Elizabeth chose her kingdom. She chose patience over comfort, courage over safety, and purpose over everything else. Now I want to ask you, what would you choose if you had to decide between love and a dream bigger than yourself? What would your answer be? Tell me in the comments. I would love to read your thoughts. And if these slow English stories help your learning journey, subscribe and come back. New stories are waiting for you right here.